The audacity of an average student grading an honor roll government, why Penelope Beckles 3 out of 10. Rating is the most disingenuous act in Trinidad and Tobago political history. An editorial by Professor Wall Street. Let us be clear from the outset. When opposition leader Penelope Beckles Robinson handed the Kamla Persad Bissessar-led UNC administration a grade of 3 out of 10, with 10 being excellent, she did not issue a political critique. She issued a confession of her own irrelevance, her own partisan desperation, and her own spectacular failure as the leader of the opposition of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. This editorial is not simply a rebuttal. It is a documented indictment of what has become the most disingenuous, most off-base, and most intellectually dishonest opposition leadership performance in the modern history of this Twin Island nation. Here are 10 reasons why Beckles' rating is as unrealistic as it is revealing, and why, in the court of public opinion, she stands alone as the worst opposition leader TNT has ever had to endure. 1. She inherited a demolished economy and wants to grade the cleanup crew. By March 2025, TNT's net official reserves had collapsed to approximately $5.3 billion US dollars, down from $11.5 billion US dollars at the end of 2014. A loss of nearly $6.2 billion US dollars in reserves over the PNM's decade in office, and 12.9 months of import cover that existed at the end of 2014 under the last UNC administration. This is the economic rubble the Persad Bissessar government inherited from the very party Beckles now leads. For her to then rate the incoming government at 3 out of 10 without a single acknowledgement of the fiscal crater left behind by the PNM's decade in office is not analysis. It is theater. Grading a government for struggling to clean up your own mess is not accountability. It is audacity. 2. The UNC won a landslide mandate. Beckles' 3 ratings insults 26 constituencies. On April 28, 2025, Kamla Persad Bissessar declared a landslide victory, with the UNC winning an estimated 26 of the 41 seats in the House of Representatives. The people of Trinidad and Tobago did not give the UNC a lukewarm endorsement. They delivered a resounding democratic verdict. The UNC earned over 25,000 new votes, while the PNM lost around 100,000. When Beckles assigns a score of 3 out of 10, she is not grading a government. She is disrespecting the democratic will of the overwhelming majority of TNT citizens who voted for change. That is not opposition politics. That is contempt for the electorate. 3. She ignores the Couva Children's Hospital reopening, a decade-long wrong being righted. Prime Minister Persad Bissessar on May 4th spoke to the media about opening the Couva Children's Hospital, citing it as one of the government's priorities, with the Minister of Works and Infrastructure indicating it was expected to open by the end of the year. This is a hospital the PNM government abandoned and left shuttered for years, while children and families suffered. That the UNC moved to reopen it within days of taking office is a measurable, tangible act of governance. No score of 3 out of 10 from Beckles can erase the documented reality that a children's hospital sat idle under PNM stewardship, and the UNC moved to fix it. Her silence on that fact, while rushing to issue a failing grade, exposes her rating as politically motivated fiction. 4. Public sector wage negotiations. Beckles ignores what her own party refused to do for years. Initiatives to move forward with the government's promise to bring a 10% public service wage increase have reached negotiation stages, with a few organizations already accepting renegotiated fiscal packages. Public servants waited years under the PNM for meaningful wage settlements. The UNC moved to address this in its first months. A credible opposition leader would acknowledge this progress, even if she disagreed with the pace. Beckles' blanket score of 3 dismisses the legitimate relief being felt by thousands of public servants, people who are not abstractions in a political scorecard, but real citizens of this republic. 5. The Guaracara Refinery restart. She dismisses a national economic lifeline. Prime Minister Prasad Bisesa announced that the government will restart the Petrotrin oil refinery after receiving the interim report of the Refinery Restart Committee, which concluded that restarting the Guaracara refinery is technically, commercially, and financially viable even after 7 years of closure and neglect. This refinery was shut down under the PNM in 2018, costing thousands of workers their livelihoods and stripping T&T of a critical energy asset. The UNC's decisive move to commission a restart committee, receive its findings, and commit to a path forward represents serious, strategic national governance. For Beckles to award a 3 out of 10 without meaningfully accounting for this development is not opposition scrutiny. It is deliberate omission. 6. Crime statistics show measurable improvement. Beckles distorts the data. Data provided by the TTPS shows there were 120 murders in the same calendar period of 2025, compared to 110 over the same period in 2026, reflecting a year-over-year decline in murders. Prime Minister Kamla Persad Bisesa stated that crimes reported have been reduced by 30% from 2025 to 2026. No serious person pretends that crime in T&T is solved, but a credible opposition leader presents data honestly. When Beckles issues a 3 out of 10 on a government that has demonstrably reduced the murder count in a single year, while inheriting one of the most compromised national security environments in the country's history, she is not informing the public. She is misleading it. 7. She led the PNM to its worst electoral defeat in a generation, yet she's grading others. Beckles was selected to be leader of the opposition within the People's National Movement by a slim 7. 6 margin, barely surviving her own party's internal confidence vote after leading the PNM to catastrophic defeat. The PNM lost 13 seats to the UNC's 26. That is not a narrow loss. That is a political repudiation. How does a leader who could not articulate a compelling enough vision to win the confidence of the T&T electorate turn around and grade a government that won decisively? Beckles is the student who failed the examination, grading the professor. The irony would be funny if the stakes were not so serious. 8. Her own budget response was riddled with contradictions and rejected by the House. In her maiden response as opposition leader to the 2025-2026 budget, Beckles warned the UNC was laying the foundation for total economic and financial disaster in TT. Yet in that same response, she could not offer a single credible alternative fiscal framework. Immediately after Beckles delivered her first budget reply, she was sent to the Privileges Committee, following objections from government members to statements she made on the floor of the House. An opposition leader whose budget response ends in a referral to the Privileges Committee has not presented rigorous, evidence-based opposition. She has presented rhetoric, and the Parliament held her accountable for it. A leader with that track record awarding grades of 3 out of 10 carries no credibility. 9. She told PNM supporters to take appliances and vote PNM. This is her moral standard. Beckles told listeners at a PNM public meeting that the UNC had at one stage distributed a lot of household appliances in the La Horquetta area, and she told listeners to accept any such items, but to vote PNM. The leader of the opposition publicly instructed citizens to take material goods from one political party and then vote for another. This is not principled opposition. This is the political behavior of a leader who has no moral flaw, who will use any instrument, no matter how ethically compromised, to score political points. A person of such demonstrably low political character issuing a performance rating of 3 out of 10 on a sitting government is not a credible act. It is noise. 10. History and the electorate have already rendered their verdict on Beckles, and it is far worse than a 3.
Beckles became opposition leader after the PNM was defeated in the April 28 general election, having won only 13 seats to the UNC's 26. Since taking on the role, her strategy has been a relentless stream of doom and gloom predictions, inflammatory press conferences, and party rally speeches designed to frighten the public rather than engage it in substantive policy debate. She has provided no credible alternative budget, no alternative crime plan, no alternative energy strategy. She has offered only criticism, catastrophism, and contradiction. That is not opposition leadership, that is political occupancy. And the TNT public, which delivered a landslide against her party just 1 year ago, has already graded her performance. Their verdict, not even a 3.
In conclusion, Penelope Beckles, giving the UNC government 3 out of 10, is the political equivalent of a coach who lost every game in the season critiquing the championship-winning team's style of play. It is disconnected from documented reality. It ignores verifiable achievement. It insults the democratic mandate of the majority of TNT citizens. And it confirms what many observers across the political spectrum have quietly concluded, that Penelope Beckles Robinson is not performing the role of opposition leader. She is performing the role of PNM cheerleader, and she is not even doing that particularly well. Trinidad and Tobago deserves a robust, fact-grounded, policy-literate opposition. What it has gotten instead under Beckles' leadership is the most disingenuous, most off-base, and most intellectually hollow opposition performance in the history of this republic. The nation expected better. It deserves better. And on that score, the people of TNT would give Penelope Beckles' opposition leadership a rating far lower than 3 out of 10.